Good afternoon and welcome to the 175th episode of the Georgia Farm Bureau Georgia Prep Sports Drive for the GHSA State Title. It's Wednesday. The second round is coming up. Today's show, we're going to have Creekside head coach Maurice Dixon. They're getting ready to play Dalton. They're coming off a huge first-round win over GAC. And then we're going to try to connect with Carver-Columbus head coach Pierre Coffey. He took over the Tigers this year for the first time. They're also cruising. They're in 3A. Went down from 4A, and they are about to play Harlem in the second round. And Harlem, we had them on the show on Monday. They're having a historic season. We'll talk about that matchup and all the classifications, but we'll go ahead and get started with Creekside. All right, Coach, thanks for coming on. So we're talking about how the week's going, kind of that short week after the Saturday game. But, man, you guys really came out, put out a really solid performance against GAC. So just what did you see heading into the playoffs, that Saturday game, just the way you guys were able to come out of that one?
Well, going into the playoffs, the whole idea for the kids was, the idea of a second season. You have to earn everything that you do. So our kids really looked forward to the opportunity to earn a victory. We knew GHC was a good team, but we knew if we went out there and executed, we would have some success. We wanted to start strong and, see where they took us.
Yeah, and one of the names when we talked last year, kind of right at the end of the season, someone that was coming on as a sophomore is Roderick McCrary. He's been, once again, outstanding. What have you seen from him, though, just this junior season and just how he's been all year?
We challenged them in the offseason. We told them that, hey, you're going to be a guy. We're going to switch you over to offense. You're going to play some running back, but we're going to still have the same expectations for you on defense. So, the work that you put in really is going to pay off. And over the season, we've watched him just develop into a really, really good running back. I knew he had the potential to do it, but just to see what he's done in the last 5 or 6 games, just the stats he's been able to put together has been really, really impressive, along with playing on a high level on defense also. So he's one of the leaders of our team. As Rod goes, we go.
Yep, and so that's interesting, moving him to a bigger role offensively. I think you described him as the quarterback of the defense last year. But, you guys came out, you won the Corky Kell 7-on-7. You guys have been competing since the offseason. But how has that run game kind of developed throughout the season just with him and the other guys getting involved?
We Creekside, so, we do run the ball. That's one of the things that we do. We take pride in being a physical football team. Everything starts up front for us. But guys like Travis Terrell, Kari Morrow, and, of course, I can't forget the offensive linemen, B.J. Williams, Brian Williams, Chris Carter, Caleb Holmes, Brandon Alexander, Mackay. Those guys have really come along to be really, really good football players and been playing really, really consistent football. We played some tough games at the beginning of the year, but those games allowed us to understand who we are and what we do. And we made some adjustments, and we kind of took off from there.
Yep. We'll talk about that early stretch, but real quick, I want to go back to just, I think it was last month, the Georgia High School Football Hall of Fame. You guys were out there representing kind of the future of Georgia high school football, just with a lot of your guys there. Eric Berry was there. Let's talk about that experience, just what that was like to have your kids there for that moment.
I think people talk about Georgia high school football as being one of the best states that play football in the country. But when you look at the guys who went into the first class, it's amazing. You got Hall of Famers in the NFL, guys who've had really, really good careers in other sports. It's just amazing to see the kind of talent that comes from the state of Georgia. And for us to be a part of it, for my kids to go and experience that, allowed them to dream even bigger. We talk about going to the NFL. We talk about being successful businessmen. But, we saw one of our own who went through the same struggles and from the same community that we're from, making and being inducted into that first class. I can remember Eric from when he was a player growing up. He's always been a respectable, hardworking young man and has loved our community. So if, just for us to be able to give back that love to him and support him on that big day and for our kids to experience that, which is a great opportunity.
Absolutely. And I mean, it was a pleasure to meet Eric and hang out and talk to him. And what impressed me so much is how tuned in he is to just what's going on throughout the state at the high school level. He's clearly deeply invested in the state of Georgia, in the Creekside community. But one of the other things that I was talking to him about, and I haven't done it yet, but we were talking about this Creekside coaching tree and just how so many top head coaches around the state have kind of come up through that program, led other ones up, and really kind of elevated a larger region of the state. So just in your experience, what is that Creekside coaching tree like?
I played for Coach Amos McQuarrie when I was at Creekside. And if you look at one of the top wins, or the guys who got the most wins in Georgia high school, he's on that list because he's a very, very successful coach at Creekside, and of course, he went to Whitewater. But guys like Kevin Whitley, who's the cornerbacks coach at Georgia Southern, Johnny White, Sumo Robertson, Van Johnson, the offensive coordinator at South Paulding, of course, Olton Downs. When you go to Creekside, you got an opportunity. If you're successful, it opens up stages for you to, take your career to the next level. For me, this is kind of home, and this is kind of where I want to be. But for others, they've used this as kind of a springboard to jumpstart their careers into other opportunities. So it's pretty great.
Yeah, for sure. So, Johnny White, he's a coaching legend. Yeah, so many different players. So at one point, when I get some time, I do want to kind of map it out. It really is impressive. But you guys started off the season with these 3 tough non-region ones. We saw you play Rome week 1. What was that like? Obviously it was hot as heck. Actually, I think it was raining in that game, a torrential downpour. But just what did you see out of your guys? Just a tough matchup to start the year. Just what did you guys take away from that?
When we schedule those games, first of all, the opportunity to play in the Corky Kell was just one of the things as a coach that I really wanted to do for our program and for our community, so everybody could experience what Creekside brought to the table. But Rome is a very good football team. They're still playing now. They got a chance to win a state championship. So for us to compete against them, and I really feel like, we 2 or 3 plays from that being a different ball game and the outcome being different. I knew that we had a really good football team. I knew that the work we put in would show up. As coaches, we just had to do a better job of making sure our kids were prepared to play.
Yep, and then from the sideline, sometimes in a game like that, I think in that one it was 14-6 after the first, 16-6, and then kind of held the rest of the game. But from the sideline, sometimes you get the sense of, okay, we're kind of stagnant. We just need that one big play to kind of get us back in it. So is that something you've seen your team bring to the table just in the week since, where it's a fight, it's a battle, you guys feel like you need that big play, and you guys have been getting them?
Well, in that game, we were actually inside the red zone 5 times. And we really were 6 and only scored 1 time that entire game. So for us, the emphasis on offense was we have to finish drives. We got to do whatever it takes to execute and get the ball to the end zone, get points on the board, so our defense can keep playing at a high level they do. We knew that our defense was going to be really, really good, and our offense was going to have to develop as the season went along. But for our kids, they understood that, if you do what your coach will do, you got an opportunity. Now, when you get inside that red zone, it's about the grit and how hard you want to get inside it and score points.
Yep. And then the next week, you play a tough Dutch Fork team. I know in that one it was kind of just the turnovers hurt you guys in that one. But how has Vincent Berry kind of responded, just taking care of the football in the week since, and just having a tough loss, the 0-2 start, but still just continuing to put that work in to improve week in and week out?
I believe Vincent Berry is one of the best quarterbacks in the state. I think for him, he had to get used to playing in big football games. Where he came from, they really didn't play a lot of big football games, but at Creekside, every game is a big game, especially in the beginning of the year. So he had to understand in those games, if you just are a good game manager and don't turn the ball over, you put us in the position where we always have a chance to win. From that game going forward, he has grown tremendously. I feel just as good about our pass game as I do our run game, and our run game is very, very strong. So.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, I've seen it just a lot of different guys are getting involved in the passing game. But I do want to ask about the East St. Louis game. That was obviously important, your last now in Region 1 to be able to get the victory. But in that one, am I seeing that right? You guys were able to have a 40-yard field goal in that one to kind of lift you guys for the 10-8 win?
Yeah, like we have a really, really good kicking game. Our kicker Clifford AI has been with us since 10th grade, and I've watched him develop into a really, really good kicker. He has a soccer background, which helps. But more than that, he's consistent in everything we do. He'll get out there and he'll kick the entire practice. Sometimes he be in the way. We got to move him out of the way. But the ability to get inside that 25, inside that 30-yard line and always get points is very, very crucial, especially in the playoffs. So when we get inside the 30, I feel comfortable that Clifford can make those field goals if needed. And, we kind of been like 99% from PAT for the season. So he's a strength and an asset to our football team.
Yeah, it looks like in that one, Terrell had an interception as well as contributing offensively. And then Lithia Springs to open it up. That's Corey Jarvis over there. They're an explosive offense, but it looks like you guys really ran the ball efficiently and had a huge day on the ground in that one.
Yeah, first of all, Coach Jarvis does a really, really good job. To see what he's done with Lithia Springs, the program, is a testament how good a coach he is. That game was just kind of, we get to play non-national teams, right? So we got to play teams who were in 5A. So we were able to, be physical, be aggressive, and we really kind of started figuring out who we were and what our identity was as an offense.
Yeah, it looks like Roderick in that one, 26 carries, 143 yards, a touchdown, also contributed with 12 tackles. Then as a team, 47 carries, 331 yards, and 3 touchdowns. And ever since then, I mean, that win streak has continued. Was it 9 straight at this point? And then Chapel Hill the next week. Talk a little bit about Cryshawn Lett, though. I mean, he's been getting involved and coming up with some big catches in that passing game.
Well, every strong running game or every successful offense has to have somebody who takes the pressure off what you do really, really well. Krishan has came along. He really had a good summer, but early in the season he kind of struggled with drops. Over the last 9 games, he has became a lot more consistent, right? And then you add people like Shane Kelly to the offense. I don't want to forget anybody. Josiah Cotterell, Lorenzo York, what Travis Terrell does with us in space in the passing game, and we kind of are getting really prolific in what we can do as far as on offense.
Yep, for sure. And then wanted to ask you about the Mays game. That was one you guys had to kind of fight back in. You guys come up big in the fourth quarter to get the 22-21 win. I've been impressed with what Coach Slayton's done over with the Raiders this season, but I mean, that's a team that doesn't give up. You're going to have to play 4 quarters. So just talk about how big that region win was for you guys.
Coach Slayton's doing a good job in Mays this year, bringing back the tradition of what they have up on the hill. But honestly, we turned the ball over 2 times early, and that put us in the hole. But never in the game that we kind of feel like we were out of it. We always felt like if we could just put a drive together and not make mistakes or not, get emotionally involved in the game, we were going to be fine.
Yep, and then, since then, I've just been really impressed with the efficiency of Vincent Beria. That Jackson win, he goes 9 of 10 passing, 141 yards, 2 touchdowns, and I think he also had the 2 touchdowns on the ground. So is that kind of when you saw him really take the leadership role on and kind of take control of this offense and really be dialed in when they're on the field?
Yes, for him, it was just, like I told you, he's a good quarterback, but for him, it's just about being consistent in his mechanics, but consistent in his reads, and just trusting that those guys are going to make plays when he throws them the ball. So to see him grow and to see him to start picking it up was very, very crucial for the success of our offense.
Yep, and you mentioned Crushan Lett maybe had some drops earlier. He's stepped up. Shane Kelly in that next win against Villa Rica, you guys explode for 63 points. McCrary had a big game, and then a guy that looks like has kind of joined the mix is Judah Harper. So talk about just some of the relief he's been able to bring to the table this season, just how he was able to get involved late in the region.
Okay, so for Judah, man, I love that kid. He's a 4-year program kid for us. He's one of the heart and soul of our kids. And for us, it's about when you get that opportunity, taking advantage of it. He's a guy, and he actually started getting carries in like the Lithia spring game. But when he gets this opportunity to run the football, he takes advantage of it. You know, he's about 5'1", 145 pounds. But he's a monster in the weight room. He has 4.0 GPA, so it's nothing that we put in front of him that I don't think is too big for him to handle.
Yeah, that's exciting. So he had 9 carries, I think 75 yards, 2 touchdowns against Villa Rica. You guys explode again against Tri-Cities, 77-0. Looks like your freshman quarterback's able to get snaps. So, I mean, how key was that late in the season, having these big leads and being able to not just rest your starters, but get other guys accustomed to the tempo and just speed of the game?
We take pride in developing kids at Creekside. If you look on our team, there's a lot of kids who started playing 9th grade football, JV football, and then they became successful stars on the varsity football team. And part of that is, you know, you're doing successful on varsity. You've been successful on varsity. You get up on teams, and those guys get opportunities to get into the game. So, you know, for us, our quarterback and our receivers who we feel very, very strong about on a JV level, and our defense we feel very, very strong about, they got opportunities to be very, very successful. Guys like Rayshawn Parks and Damian Henderson, RJ, Jalen Williams, those guys really, really help us. You know, I think in the future we're going to be really, really good because of those guys.
Yeah, that had to have been exciting. Rayshawn gets a 22-yard touchdown pass. But in that game, did he have 6 touchdown passes? Is that right?
Yes, he did.
So is that tied for a school record? Or, I mean, have you seen that before?
I think it is tied for a school record at Creekside. Now, I've seen it before at my other schools I coached at because we were kind of prolific on offense there too. But, you know, he really got into a groove that game. You know, he's a guy, when he gets comfortable, he can put the ball anywhere on the field that he wants to put it at. So for us, it's trying to make sure that he gets into that zone where he's comfortable on Friday.
Nice. And so I like that. Against Tri-City, you guys go for the 6 passing touchdowns. Then the next week against Banneker, it's 6 rushing touchdowns, 5 different guys. So, I mean, that was huge. You guys able to kind of close out the season with another emphatic victory. So, I mean, what did you just say to your team before that season finale, knowing it was just the last kind of test before this 5A playoff start?
For us, it was just, you know, it was senior night, so we had the opportunity to celebrate our senior class and what those guys have done for us in our program. But it also let us know is, you know, these games that we just played showed us when we're clicking and we're firing on all cylinders, there's nobody that can stop us.
Yep, and so, I mean, we've talked about the offense, but really down the stretch, you shut out Maynard Jackson, you shut out Villa Rica, you shut out Tri-Cities, Banneker, 48-7 win, and then first round against GAC, they don't score until the 4th quarter, so you got to talk about that Creekside defense. I know there's a lot of pride on that side of the ball.
You know, traditionally we good on defense. That's the expectation, and our kids understand that. I want to say, you know, the Lithia Springs game, they weren't very happy with how they performed because they didn't feel like they got after the quarterback like they should be. But like I told them, they played a good team. But, you know, for us as a defense, we really have gotten healthy. I don't think we played on a full strength team until Banneker, right? So one person was missing, maybe like, you know, Javian Miller missed a lot of time with his foot. Malik Tullis has missed a lot of time. we've had a lot of guys who've been out with injuries. So for us to get healthy at this time and for them to still be able to uphold the expectation of defense of not giving up many points, this shows it's a testament to our coaches.
Yeah, and then talk a little bit about the versatility of Shane Kelly offensively, just what he's able to do, catching the ball, taking handoffs maybe, but just getting involved and getting the ball in his hands.
We knew we needed another playmaker on offense, and Shane is a guy who has been one of those guys who has developed through the system. In ninth grade, he was the quarterback on JV. On 10th grade, he played receiver. So we knew when you put the ball in his hands, he's very, very electric. Now, the work ethic is meeting the talents. He's coming to practice every day. He's participating in all-season and in-season lists. He's really pushing himself to be a very, very good player. So what you're seeing is what we've kind of known he can do, but he just put himself in a position to where he's getting that opportunity. So, I feel like anytime he touches the ball, he can make a big play for us. He's the X factor in the offense because you can cover Krishan, you can lock the box, stop the run, but when we get Shane involved and he's on, we're very, very hard to stop.
Yep, and just one more point on that GAC game. I mean, it was such a dominant show when you guys are up 48-0 at the half. I think you guys had 3 interceptions in that game. Carter Hicks blocked a punt. So, I mean, just how many big plays were you guys able to produce in that first-round win?
Well, the goal is to come out and start fast, right? So, we want you to put your foot in that tire, so to say. And if you can survive us hitting you hard as we can in that first half, then it's going to be a game. It's about just the last man standing and, us wanting to start fast and be as physical as possible and just try to make as many plays as we can.
Yep, and you're about to play Dalton. They're coming off that 7-3 win over Loganville. We've seen what Tyson Greenwade's been able to do against opponents this year. What's your overall impression of the Catamounts and kind of your kind of position in this 5A bracket at this point?
Well, first of all, they up there in Northwest Georgia. They play really good football up there. We understand how the game is going to be. They're very, very well coached. The running back is a very, very good player. Who really impresses me is the quarterback and the poise that he shows running the offense. On defense, they got some guys who really, really fly around. At linebacker, they got a couple of guys who are dudes, and their DBs are really, really well. So, I anticipate them trying to come in and stack the box, stop the run, and we're just going to be able to make some plays on the outside in order to win the game. Now, as far as the whole entire bracket goes, I'm going to be cliche. We got to take it one game at a time. But our road to the state champion, I think it might be one of the harder ones because we're really going to have to go, and if we get an opportunity to do it, we have to beat some of the more traditional programs in the state of Georgia. So I'm excited. It's a good story.
Yep, always that potential matchup with the Warner Robins. We saw even a team like Cass in the last round having a big win over Jefferson, but I think what's interesting about Dalton with Tyson Greenwade, I think I saw a stat. He's accounted for 60% of their yards this season, which it sounds okay, but yeah, that 60% is over 2,000 yards rushing, so it really does go through him. So I think it's going to be an interesting matchup. You kind of know what Dalton's going to bring to the table, what their strengths are, and you obviously know your team identity as well. So I think it's going to be really exciting. So just what are you looking forward to just the rest of this week preparing to punch a ticket into the quarterfinals?
I'm going to tell you what I enjoy most about our kids, man. I enjoy practice. We've get to the point where our kids love to practice, right? And if you get a team that loves to practice and work hard, Friday nights are easy. So for me, it's just enjoying the kids, busting their butt at practice, doing what we got to do to prepare for the game. Every day we try to put daily deposits in, and on game days when we go and we withdraw from the bank. So, hopefully they don't put a lot of deposits so we can withdraw big on Friday night.
Awesome. Well, Coach Dixon, thank you so much for coming on. We're going to be looking at that game this week. As always, impressed with what Creekside and the Seminoles are doing. Best of luck, Coach.
Thank you. Try pride.
Tribe pride, absolutely. All right, so there you have it. There goes Coach Dixon. Intriguing matchup against Dalton. Can they throttle Tyson Greenwade? He's got, what did I say, 2,093 yards from scrimmage this season, 23 touchdowns. It all goes through him. So we'll see on Friday, but we're going to take a quick break and thank our sponsor, Georgia Farm Bureau.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection if farmers need it. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are a Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So I was impressed with that, and just an overall look at what Creekside has done since that 0-2 start, the loss to Rome, the loss to Dutch Fork. They have not dropped a game within Class 5A yet. Their defense has been absolutely dominant, and offensively it looks like they have found kind of their identity, their versatility, and as he said, things have opened up. You have the passing game, the rushing game in back-to-back games going 6 touchdowns each. That is impressive. And then against GAC, we saw guys that typically, who was that? Yeah, Shane Kelly, a guy that has been making big plays catching the ball. He's able to take handoffs. And then you honestly see the reverse with Travis Terrell, guy who's been outstanding running the ball. He's hauling in touchdown catches. So they're really being versatile offensively, sparking big plays, and then executing in the moment. So really impressed. But let's start by looking at the rest of 5A. See kind of what else is going on besides that Creekside matchup. We're going to have Kell against Calhoun. That will be interesting. Calhoun is in the second round for the 22nd consecutive year. They're 16-5 in that. Obviously, Kell has been in the playoffs each year since 2008. Their only trip to the quarterfinals during that stretch, I believe, was 2016. They're coming off a win over Lithia Springs, a team that I thought does have a really solid offense. They were competitive against Creekside before they ran away with it. Bryce Clavin had a big game, 12 of 15 passing, 201 yards and 2 touchdowns. And we all know what Calhoun can do with their spread offense. They had a narrow win over Eastside, though, 23-21. And Calhoun's been an interesting team this year. Let me fix my chair real quick. But yeah, they've been a team that has had the big wins over Carsville and then lost to Cass. I mean, we saw what Cass did last round, but they will be hosting Kell, so that's a tough place to play. Then you have Chambly, who's been a great story this season. They barely lost to Decatur in their region championship, got the 2 seed. They, I believe, host their first ever playoff game last week and won. They beat McIntosh 62-13, but now they're going to be playing Ware County. Ware County beat Jones County 55-13 in the first round. I think they're only giving up probably 8 points a game defensively, and Chambly is 0-10 all-time against number 1 ranked teams. So that'll be a tough one for Chambly. Could be the end of their historic season, but Fabian Walker has been a really big playmaker for them. That's Chambly's quarterback, and he's actually currently ranked 5th all-time in DeKalb County history with 5,626 career passing yards, and he had 292 and 2 touchdowns last week against McIntosh, and also rushed for 2 touchdowns. So I think what Coach Schwank said about Chambly is they want to have the most fun out of any team in the state this year. They go out there, they play loose, they have high energy, but that's going to be a really big test. So we'll see what they can do against Ware County. A really interesting matchup also in 5A, Cass at Mays. I thought Mays has really come alive late in this season. They're a really competitive team that fights for all 4 quarters. They have the ability to just kind of blow it open, score a bunch of points. You saw that against Centennial last week, 44-16 win. They're averaging 40.7 points per game against 5A programs this year. And then you have Cass, a team that has pulled off upsets. Their quarterback, Brody McWhorter, he's going to be playing in the Georgia Elite Classic this season with Carrollton's quarterback. Huge prospect in that freshman class. He was 20 of 29, passing for 270 yards and 3 touchdowns in his playoff debut against Jefferson. So how impressive is that? A freshman going out there against Jefferson and putting up a performance like that. It's awesome to see. And then Sokovie White for Cass. He's a top playmaker. He had the 5 catches, 132 yards, and also had 2 interceptions. So he's a big two-way player for them. Sokovie White. We'll see what he can do against Mays. You have Northgate playing a really tough Dutchtown team. We had Northgate on this past Monday, and I think what stands out about them is their steady improvement throughout the season. They had some tough losses early to your Whitewaters, who is it? Yeah, Stars Mill, but then have turned it up. I thought they've been impressive on both sides of the football, and we know Dutchtown, they've had a win over Warner Robins. They're one of the top teams, top contenders, and they've been outstanding on both sides of the ball. He was talking about just their overall athleticism was something that possibly concerned them, but they're going to come up with a game plan, try to go down to Dutchtown, get that win. Warner Robins is playing Northside Columbus. Warner Robins, the defending champs, they are a really good team. I think the key, though, in this one, Northside Columbus, they have that outstanding running back, Malachi Hosley. Northgate was talking about him, just how impressed it was. Said that guy is legit. One of those players that each opponent has really respected his ability to make plays running the ball. So as long as Warner Robins is able to slow down Malachi Hosley, I think they'll have the depth to pull that one off. We talked about the Dalton and Creekside game. Coffey and Decatur should be interesting as well. Decatur's the team that emerged out of Chambly's region. They've been lighting up the scoreboard this season and kind of having that year that really is putting that Decatur program on the map for football. It's a great school, but haven't necessarily been known for their football success. So that would be a big home game against Coffey. And then the other one that we've been really interested in all week is going to be Cartersville at Cambridge. Najee and I talked about it yesterday on Underrated and Overlooked. We really like what Cambridge has as just an overall team. Their ability to run the ball physically. Christian Isabor, he's been a true just MVP in that backfield, running behind that outstanding offensive line. And then you have a defense that plays really tough. They play as a unit. They don't really give up big plays. They can spark turnovers. They got a bunch of state championship caliber wrestlers back there. They've got great form. And then he'll actually be talking, I believe, to Coach Bennett. When are you going to have that out?
Coach Bennett. I'm trying to have it hopefully by Friday morning.
Okay, so Najee's going to talk because I think that's his game of the week. He's going to interview on – was it Keeping It Real? Not Keeping It Real with Najee. Sports Talk with Najee. I was close. But, yeah, he'll have a one-on-one with Coach Bennett. So I think that will definitely be worth checking out. That's a really intriguing matchup between Cartersville and Cambridge. Yep, and so he's going to do a write-up before that interview. So he'll talk to Coach Foster over at Cartersville and then have the conversation with Cambridge. But, yeah, outstanding matchups throughout Class 5A. I'm really interested in that, and I just want to see what Creekside's able to do. I mean, they've turned it on, and so you have a team like Creekside, haven't lost within the classification yet. Dutchtown, Warner Robins, Cambridge, Coffey, Cartersville. I mean, 5A, as we say, it's wide open. And then let's see. I got some time. Let's go over Class 4A, though. And any other class that I don't get on, we'll probably get into it on Friday. But in Class 4A, Stevenson at Cedartown. Stevenson's coming off a crazy win over Pace Academy. As I said, that was one of the last ones to end on Friday. Pace Academy had that lead, and then Stevenson's able to break off a huge 58-yard touchdown run at the end after a kickoff return touchdown, I believe. And so they were down 38-26 with 5 minutes left. Down by 8 with 5 minutes left, and then they roar back for that 40-38 win. That was huge for them. They had a tough loss to Holy Innocents recently. They rebounded, and now they're going to have to take on Cedartown. Cedartown is so dangerous because of their running ability, that system that they're so accustomed to using, and then also this year that new dynamic with the passing ability of Reese Tanner. They're taking shots and just always having these explosive plays. And then Harlem Diamond is an absolute freak athlete. He can run the ball. He can take 20 carries if he wants, and he can also go over the top and make huge plays in the passing game. And then we saw that video of him this week back squatting 500 pounds. So he's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the strength, and he is just a touchdown machine. Cedartown's been unstoppable this season, but can Stevenson's athleticism give them trouble? We'll see about that. Burke County at Bainbridge. This one will be interesting. Burke County had a dramatic win over LaGrange on Saturday. LaGrange is one of the best teams in 4A. I don't care what anyone says. We saw them beat Troop. They're well coached. They had so much talent. But Burke County, you look at that game, they have so much size in their secondary. 6'3" safety into the game for them. Just able to kind of take it away from the receiver and make a play on the ball. So that's something that should worry Bainbridge if they're trying to go up. I mean, you can't really take chances against a secondary with that type of size unless you're throwing absolute dimes. But Bainbridge, they've been a team that has been unstoppable against Class 4A opponents. I don't think they've lost within the classification this season. They're 7-4, and they will be hosting. Keenan Phillips had 3 touchdowns in the first first 14 minutes in their win in the first round. They were up 42-13 at halftime, and it was his 5th straight 100-yard game. And then that was a big win over Baldwin. So Baldwin's a good team. They were just absolutely dominating 42-13 at the half. Watch out for Bainbridge. Lovett at North Oconee. We saw Lovett last week against Westminster pull out that crazy win at the end, but I think North Oconee, they're 11-0. They haven't allowed more than 13 points in a game this season. They've held 9 opponents to a touchdown or less, and then they have Khalil Barnes, a 3-star running back and defensive back. He's got offers from Clemson, Notre Dame, everyone else, the who's who of big programs, and he had in the latest win over Sonoraville, 49-6. Listen to this: 3 offensive touchdowns, a 55-yard interception return touchdown, and then a 93-yard touchdown run in that game. So he's the explosive playmaker. I think Lovett will have their hands full with him and just what North Oconee as an overall team can do. I said it probably 2 years ago. I see the entire North Oconee program on that same trajectory that Buford was on probably a decade ago. Probably 15 years ago, where they're kind of in this 4A slot. They're good across the board athletically. That area is blowing up. I mean, the Oconee County area. The population is going to boom. And then I think they're going to continue to kind of go up in the classifications. And then once they break through and start winning championships, I think they're going to have a grip on it. And they've been close in the past, but this year I think that they are my favorite in Class 4A, so that would be incredible. And then what about Wayne County? They're going to be playing Perry, who has not lost within the class this season. Their only loss was to Houston County by 1 point in the season opener. I think they went for 2, so they were actually ahead in that entire game. Houston County clawed back and then just decided to take a gamble. They got the win, but since then, 10 straight wins. And then Wayne County, they were 0-9 last year. 0-9. They're 9-2 now, and Jay Beauchamp came. That's Rabun County's former coach. He's done an unbelievable job transforming them. They come off a 31-13 win over Trinity Christian. That's impressive. Trinity Christian's a good team. And then, Matthew Fuller, he had 175 yards and 3 touchdowns. He has 1,500 yards, 19 touchdowns on the season. So Wayne County is a running team. They run the ball probably 80% or more of the time. And then you have Perry with Amar Gordon. He's a true passer, can also run the ball. And then he's joined by Demetrius Carter and then the receiver, Dakari Anderson. And so what makes Perry so dangerous, you have the experienced quarterback in Amar Gordon. He's over 2,000 yards passing. He can also run the ball. And then you have in the backfield Demetrius Carter, a 1,000-yard rusher, and then you have a 1,000-yard receiver. So you're loaded with star power in the passing game. You got one of the best backs behind you, and then one of the best quarterbacks. They are a truly dangerous offense. I really like Perry to make a run this year, and their 40-6 win over Shaw last week gives them their 3rd straight quarterfinal appearance. Puts them a win away from their 3rd quarterfinal appearance in a row. Spalding, that's a team that Perry beat in the regular season. Other than that, they've been really solid. They're always outstanding with guys that star in track as well. They have a lot of speed, great tradition there. They're going to be playing Benedictine, though. That will be a tough matchup for them, the defending champs. They beat Whitewater 34-10 last week. They've won in the first round 11 straight years, and they had the balance with Luke Chromacoke at quarterback, a 3-star committed to Florida State. He had 2 touchdowns through the air and 2 running touchdowns against Whitewater, and he, I believe, 23 passing touchdowns this season, over 2,000 yards. So another 2,000-yard passer in 4A, and there's just 3 more matchups we'll get into before we take a final break. Walnut Grove at Stockbridge. That'll be interesting. Walnut Grove, their first playoff win in the school's history last week. Their 14-year-old school. They beat Heritage Ringgold 17-13. Heritage is a solid team. They were actually down 7-3 at the half. And then Ashton Adams, their quarterback, he willed them back in it. He's passed for 1,288 yards this season. They have a 1,200-yard rusher in Ahmad Howard, and then Stockbridge. I think they're a sleeper in 4A. They're new to the classification and been making serious noise. They beat Hateville Charter 28-14. That's their first playoff win since 2018. And they rushed for 347 yards and 4 touchdowns off just 37 carries in that game. Jaden Scott, 157 yards, 3 touchdowns. DeAndre Stone, 104 yards. And then Jordan Mack. So they don't have a 1,000-yard rusher, but they have about 3 guys that are at 700, 800 yards. So Stockbridge has a lot of moving pieces, taking handoffs, and they're a tough football team. Cairo and Troop. We'll say it that way this time. I'm interested in seeing if Troop can get this big win. I think ever since their loss to LaGrange, they were undefeated heading into that, had a chance to, they did win their first region title since 1987, but I think it would have been really exciting if they got the undefeated season. They ended up coming up short in that one. LaGrange had an epic comeback that actually got them into the playoffs. They're out of it now, but they had a really competitive game against New Hampstead in the first round. So I was surprised with that. I thought Troop would be able to win by maybe 2 scores, but it was a 36-29 win. It's just a 7-point victory. Teo Todd had 180 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, and all of them went to Logan Sinkfield. And then Teo Todd also ran for 106 yards and a touchdown. So with Troop, it all goes through Teo Todd. And Logan Sinkfield, a big contributor in that passing game. And Teo is pretty much their best runner. Obviously, he's their best passer too, but he's going to get his on the ground. And we'll see what Cairo does. That's a really good team. They've been outstanding. Their only kind of 4A loss this year was to Bainbridge in the season finale that gave them the 2 seed. So that might have just been a tough matchup with Bainbridge. Maybe they'll match up better with Troop and give them a ball game. I do think Cairo is a very good team, but it's just going to come down to how well Teo Todd plays, and he definitely brings it week in and week out. So I think I like Troop at home in this one, and Teo Todd just make the type of plays he does. Then the final one, Central Carroll at Holy Innocents. This one will be very intriguing because you have a Holy Innocents team that runs the triple option. We talked to Coach Todd Winter, I think it was last week. He doesn't even know he says he doesn't even know who's going to get the ball each play or who's going to have the big game. They truly do just run kind of a machine in that triple option system, so we'll be dependent on what Central Carroll does defensively. And then they haven't turned the ball over much this season. When we talked to him before their playoff win, they had just 6 turnovers offensively, and they had produced 30 defensively. So they've just been using the triple option to wear out teams, and then defensively they just get after it. And Central Carroll is also a team that's exceptional at running the ball. Let's see, they've got freshman Jonas Walton. He was their leading rusher in the last game, 104 yards off 17 carries. And then their quarterback, Devin Powell, he had 227 yards and 4 touchdowns, also ran for 81 yards. And so in total, I think they probably had, they had a 35-7 win over Madison County. I mean, they were able to put points on the board, but it's their ability to move the ball offensively. They rack up the yardage each game and are really good at controlling the ball. So I think that Central Carroll Holy Innocents game will be really good. Anyone in attendance, they're going to see a really great, evenly matched game. The two styles that aren't necessarily contrasting, but both of them have the ability to control the football and play a distinct style. So I think that will be another great 4A matchup. But we'll go ahead and take one more break before we close out the show. I don't think I'm going to be able to get Carver on, but I will talk about them on the other side.
Our mission has always been to support Georgia farmers. That's why we created Georgia Farm Bureau Mutual Insurance Company, providing financial protection that farmers needed. While this remains the same today, we've grown to protect all Georgians through home, auto, and life insurance. From the very beginning and into the future, we stand for every Georgia community.
We are our Farm Bureau.
All right, welcome back. So we're going to Class 3A now with Carver-Columbus. And obviously a team with tons of traditional success. They made it to the finals last year in Class 4A. I believe they lost to Benedictine in the championship. And really each season, I'm looking at it, they haven't missed the playoffs since 2016. Had a championship in 2007, so many quarterfinal appearances, semifinal appearances as well, 10-win seasons. But this was Pierre Coffey's first year taking over for Corey Joyner, and they come out looking strong. I put some notes out, and by the way, they're going to be playing Harlem. As I mentioned, Harlem, we had them on the show Monday, their historic season, and they're actually going to have to go on the road to Harlem because they lost to Thomasville in the region. That was a 15-14 game. That's their only loss in Class 3A this season, and so that 1-point loss cost them home field. But they opened the season with Hardaway. Their quarterback is Neville Dean. He comes out, has a really rough time passing the ball in that first week. So 4 of 15 passing, 25 yards, and no touchdowns and an interception. But he had a big game on the ground. 14 carries, 126 yards, and a touchdown. We haven't really seen Neville run the ball as much as he did in that opener, and that's because Jamari Riley has really been the top guy taking the handoffs with DeAndre Childs. And so I think at this point, Jamari's at like 21 touchdowns this season. I think, 2 let's see. Oh, yeah, 1,297 yards, 17 touchdowns. So he's at about 130 yards per game. And then Deontay Childs, he had 2 touchdowns in that first game, and he's kind of been a 1-2 punch with them. And then if you look at the Carver-Columbus defense, they have so many tackles for loss, so many sacks on the season, so that will be a real problem for Harlem's offense. But, I mean, first week, 14 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. They come out the next week, they shut out Spencer 40-0. That's that defense I'm talking about. And then they're really starting to rely on the ground game. Novell at quarterback, he just goes 4 of 11 for 29 yards. So they aren't really taking many chances. He did have 11 carries, 27 yards and a touchdown. And then Jamari, 11 carries, 132 yards, 3 touchdowns. Deontay, 8 carries, 64 yards, and 1 touchdown. So as a team, 30 carries, 223 yards, 5 touchdowns, a 40-0 win. Just really efficient football. And then they come out and they fall to Northeast Macon. That's a Class 2A team. They were number 2, I believe, or they were ranked pretty high at the time. But that was a tough loss. And so this was the one anomaly. They've been running the ball so great this season, but in that one, just 17 carries as a team for 71 yards. So it looks like Northeast was able to stack the box and force them to pass the ball based on what they had seen in the previous 2 weeks. And then Novell goes 10 of 19, 145 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 interception. So able to do a decent job there, but they held Jamari to just 17 yards off 6 carries. I don't know if he was injured in that one. And then they produced 20 tackles for loss. So just didn't have a good offensive game. And they end up losing 28-6. They turn around, they beat Hateville Charter to close out non-region 28-6. Efficient day passing, 6 of 9, 69 yards and touchdown. And then Jamari definitely got his 19 carries, 160 yards, 3 touchdowns. And as a team, 44 carries, 260 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So that is kind of what their average is this season. It's about 250, 260 rushing yards per game. So look for them to continue running the ball. And then, as I said, I've been really impressed with their defense. And you saw it in their region opener against Columbus. They won that one 45-7. Columbus ran the ball 21 times for -1 yard as a team. So true dominance defensively. And then you had a good day passing, 5'11", 114 yards, 3 touchdowns. 3 different guys caught those. So the passing game that had been non-existent, it starts to come alive in that Columbus win. I believe that was Terrell Dewberry had a touchdown, Magic Hickson, and then Braylon Jakes. And then Javari had 2 touchdowns. I believe, yeah, two rushing touchdowns that one. A real efficient game. So dominant win over rival Columbus. And then the Thomasville game, they fall at the end, and Thomasville was able to get that edge, the 15-14 win, because they had a safety in the first quarter. So if not for that safety, they would have been in control of that one. They gave up just 1 touchdown and the 2 field goals. And then as a team, good day passing, 14 of 20, 190 yards and a touchdown. As a team, 51 carries, 206 yards, but just didn't get the touchdowns in that game. And then the early safety cost them. That was their last loss. They beat a really good Crisp County team 30-20 after that. That was a game where they had to come back in it. They were down 14-6 at the half, outscored Crisp County 24-6 in the second half, and got the 10-point victory. So got to be confident in that. Their quarterback, Novell Dean, able with Jamari to kind of get them back in that game and come away with the comeback. It's a good sign for them heading into the playoffs with these tough matchups. They beat Monroe 38-19. Big game from Deontay Childs in that one. 10 carries, 100 yards, 2 touchdowns. They had 7 completions, so they went 7 of 13 passing to 6 different targets. So that's kind of what their passing game has looked like. They don't really have a go-to. They just will distribute it when needed to keep the defense honest because they want to rely on the run. They had Trayvon Henry and Darren Reed against Monroe. Each had 3 sacks. They had 9 sacks as a team, so another dominant defensive performance. And then they shut out Doherty in the season finale, 27-0. 109 yards passing and a touchdown and a rushing touchdown from Novell. You had Javari and Deontay both having kind of shared roles in that one again, each having a touchdown. And then Sherman, God, I can't remember his first name. I think it's Gentry Sherman. He had a touchdown catch in that one. So he's been getting involved as of late. And then 16 tackles for loss, 7 sacks against Doherty. And then to open the playoffs, a 39-0 win over Upson Lee. They had another dominant day running the ball. I think it was, Javari, 11 carries, 92 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then Deontay, 8 carries, 78 yards, 2 touchdowns. They're splitting it even. And then they only had to pass the ball 9 times in that game. They went 4 of 9 for 59 yards. So the run game's been dominant. They like what their defense is able to do. They aren't taking too many chances, and I like them in that matchup against Harlem. But let's go over 3A real quick before we close out the show. And I will go over the other classes we didn't get to on Friday. But Carver, Atlanta, and Monroe area, that will be a great matchup. Carver, Atlanta has goals set to get back to the state title game after falling to Cedar Grove last year. Their only losses this season are to Cedar Grove, Sandy Creek, and Buford. And then they're going to be playing a tough Monroe area team. They are the only number 4 seed still playing at this point. They had a big win over top seed Dawson County in the first round, 35-13. Jeremiah Anderson, their quarterback, 6 of 7 passing for 143 yards and was also their leading rusher. And then they sparked big plays with Jakiri Jones. He had 4 tackles for loss, a blocked punt, a blocked PAT, and a fumble recovery. When it comes to Carver, we know Bryce Bowens is outstanding, and in that first-round victory, they beat Ringgold 44-28. Obviously, they were on the road as the 3 seed, and Bryce Bowens had one of his best games of the season, only played 3 quarters, 21 of 29 passing, 320 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So a great sign for Carver, Atlanta right there. Liberty County and Thomasville. Thomasville, they've got a new coach this season, coming off that big year in Class 2A where they made it to the finals and lost. They're going to be playing Liberty County, who had a 19-14 win over Morgan County in the first round. As for Thomasville, they beat Jackson 42-21 last week. Jay Randall, 149 rushing yards. Levante Cole, 135, and then quarterback Cameron Hill, 185 yards passing. And then Cole Shaw was the big target that day, 7 catches, 157 yards, and 2 touchdowns. And then, both of these programs have first-year head coaches. Sandy Creek and Stevens County, that one should be exciting. So Sandy Creek is coming off a 70-14 win over Kula Creek. And then Stevens County, they're coming off, 51-14. So they combined for 121 points in that first round. I think that game's going to be explosive. They have identical 9-2 records. They're both battle-tested. I think they're going to come out and both get off to hot starts. And that's a school record of points for Sandy Creek last week, the 70 right there. And that's Dorian Gratham, Jameer Lattimore. He's their quarterback. He's closing in on 2,000 passing yards this season, has 27 touchdowns. So Sandy Creek and Stevens County, 2 teams that are going to want to keep their playoffs going. A great team is going to lose on Friday, that is for sure. Savannah Christian at Peach County. Savannah Christian, obviously new to 3A. Peach County's been one of the top teams in 3A over the years. And it says only Cedar Grove has a longer active streak in 3A for making the quarterfinals. They're going to seek their 7th straight appearance against a 10-1 Savannah Christian team. That'll be interesting. And then 9-2 Doherty. God, I can never say that. Just isn't spelled right. They're going to be at Calvary Day. This is a game that we are watching very closely. Calvary Day is ranked number 2 at this point. They're undefeated. And then the winner of that game is going to play the winner of Hebron Christian at Cedar Grove. So that would be a potential 1 versus 2 in the quarterfinals. We don't have that in many of the classes. For instance, in 7A, you got Buford on this side, Mill Creek on this side. In 2A, you have Fitzgerald on this side. You have South Atlanta on this side. And so that would be a really big matchup in the next round. Calvary Day, number 2, at number 1, Cedar Grove. I like both their chances this week. And then the Carver-Columbus game, we mentioned that. They're playing on the road against Harlem, 10-1. They're coming off their first playoff win since 1981. They had a 35-0 victory over Long County. They cruised to that win. And then the final one's going to be Oconee County at Adairsville. Adairsville is 10-1. They're having a historic year. 3 different guys went for over 100 yards in their 55-26 win over Douglas. And we'll see if they're able to overcome Whit Weeks, that experienced Oconee County linebacking core, and just the experience and toughness of that program. So I think Adairsville is going to be at home. They're going to have to rely on that energy, and that would be probably the biggest win in their program history if they pull it off against the Warriors. So that's what we got for you. Najee Wilkins is going to be back tomorrow at 2 o'clock for Keeping It Real with Najee Wilkins. He's going to have 3 guests. He's going to be getting into the girls' side of the GHSA landscape. We got our basketball rankings up on scoreatl.com, the boys and girls, the latest ones. Not every team has played, but there were some big matchups this last week, so we did update them accordingly. And then you got to go to the Score Atlanta YouTube page, check out yesterday's episode of the Underrated and Overrated podcast. It was really interesting. We covered high school, college, and then got into the NFL. That was a great hour. You can find it once again on the Score Atlanta YouTube page. Go to our social medias. We also have it on Spotify and the Apple podcast. It's not really a store, but the podcast library. You can find it. Check it out. It'll be informative, and we'll be back Thursday and Friday. So thanks for joining us.